By the time your alarm goes off, right? You no longer feel like killing Netanyahu or dropping bombs on Tel Aviv because you know that's not going to solve the problem either, right? That we can't fight with hate. God, some days though, some days, like the man said, you just want to get one in, you know? You see, I used to live among a certain kind of human. He is homo. Man, I wish I knew a cool Latin word to insert here. But he's like homo computer, right? He's like homo computer. And he sees something. You know, I saw this really cool skit recently about, you know, a bunch of tech guys going out into a park, and they're like, you know what would be great if we could totally monetize the visuals on this, you know, like if we could monetize the visuals on this, that'll be spectacular, right? That's all they see, right? Dollar signs everywhere. And they're cool people, man. They're cool people. Really cool people, I mean. And all of them mean well, except we're all children of men who walked us into the data centers and told us that that's what being cool looked like. And they said it because they were afraid that if we believe the kid who lived down by the pond, whose dad taught him to climb trees and catch black snakes and look them in the eye, that we couldn't compete with that dad, you know. And after all, that kid, his dad was poor and they didn't go on vacations, so whatever. Except that kid, right? That kid, he was so quiet in the woods that a bat landed next to its head, to his head. To its head also. To their head. And good God, what that must have felt like, right? To be that close with something that old. It's as if you were touching death. Because she's also the oldest thing, right? She's only younger than life. Her older sister. And in every generation she supplants her, right? And she rises again, the older sister. Life. And the younger death comes screaming into the room and says, "Keep your hands off my things." The world is so fast, my friends, you know. The world is so fast that I consume it at 3x when I read audiobooks. Where am I running to, man? Why are you listening to life at that bit rate? What happened? It's all megahertz now? Right? and gigabits, right? And teraflops and whatever the hell else is gonna come up next. We need to slow it down because the children, right? The only place that life comes to them at the same rate as it used to for their ancestors. This is in church and in the mosque and in the ashram and in the community houses, because there people sing together, you know. And when you sing, you don't sing very well if you have the fastest speed. You know, you ever sang in a choir, right? You don't sing very well if your connection to the words is being downloaded at AT&T's best fiber in Winston-Salem speed, right? You just ruined the damn song, man. You have to sing at the same speed as everybody else. Except we created a world where as soon as these children were born, they were shown that you don't have to consume the world at the same rate as the poor people, man. They have the slower internet. It's called dial-up, man. You can literally hear the man running in the string that is connecting you to the other person, right? That weird sound, the clicking sound, that was the human being who was running to deliver the damn message. It's how slow it was. I'm just wondering how long it'll be before you guys think that we can catch a break, you know? That we can catch a break. Because my camera lady here is falling asleep, y'all. You know? She's tired because she's got to go to work tomorrow morning at 8 and make sure she clock in. Because if she don't, ain't nobody gonna eat. And it's the system we built, not to oppress nobody, but here we are, right? And maybe nobody built this into the system. Maybe it's not on purpose. But can we at least have a poll request? Like, can anybody up there approve anything we're sending up? Because it looks like nothing's been patched except everything that we requested not to be patched, right? So it's as if you have the senior engineer, right? And no code is ever good enough for him, right? At least that's what he tells you. That every time that he's all three, how many of the rest of us are there? All 8 billion of the times that you have sent in a pull request and he has sent some response that, you know, maybe you should use this modality in your naming convention instead of that one, and you're wondering how on God's earth that would make a difference. And maybe this is as bad as the worst TV, right? when the children are going to Caladium, they walk past these trees. Can you point the camera at the trees for me, please? So that I don't look like a crazy person. Yeah, they walk past these trees. It's illegal to climb those trees. If I climb the trees right now, some people will think it's cute. And then eventually somebody will call the city and then they will get me down. Because if you want to climb, you pay $25 at Caladium, and then your children get to climb something made of steel that's built to resemble trees. I'm wondering, at least, I think that Caladium is a wonderful idea, you know, because in Winston-Salem, they get to play indoors in the winter, right? I bet that's great fun. But wouldn't it be cool if they let us climb the trees too? I mean, the real trees. I mean, especially since that's all we're asking, man, right? We're not asking for everything they own, right? Which are the rates they have consumed. Anyway, let's not get into that pool. I'll leave that to the guys who know better. Let's wait in it, why not? I just think that, and hope, somebody might be able to tell us all a story. Now, there's this beautiful idea, right? There's this beautiful idea among the Christians, you know? And that's why I spend most of my time with them, but there's this beautiful idea among the Christians, right? And it says that on the night of Pentecost, when the Spirit of God descended on them, that everybody who was there that spoke a different language was ministered to, was told a story about the ineffable, which they understood in their own language. The Holy Spirit showed all of them that the God that they called Allah, that the God they called Jah, the God they called Yahweh and Elohim and Chi and Krishna and Kali and Hanuman and Nogopo, right? And Antoine. That all that God was the same. It was the same. It was the same. It was the same. It was the same. One of the panels under your car hanging down. I don't know whether you've noticed. Remind me to check. I think that it's like a little bit like this 2018 Honda, you know? It drives like a dream. But every once in a while, one of the panels comes loose underneath it. And nobody notices it until until the car is lifted up. And who knows how long that's going to take. But there are these people, right? They are low to the ground because, you see, they are cripples and have been crippled since birth. And they sit on the floor and they drag themselves on the floor. And so from time to time they look on the cars, yeah? And they can see the underbelly of it. And then they can see how it's falling apart, yeah? And if you pay attention to them long enough, they will tell you the problem before it eats up into your vehicle and destroys it. They are our grounded brothers, right? We see of electricity that we need to ground it, right? We need to ground it to stabilize it, right? To stabilize it. We walk around with these things stuck in our ears, right? And we download programming. From whatever branch was pulled the last time somebody with force and energy in our family did a fetch and update, right? So your family tree has been sitting here, right? And the thing done branched off, and so much code has been checked in, and ain't nobody in the fork that you're on been told that, listen, man, you need to get caught up, yo. And so you're running this code that won't compile, and when it does, gives you behavior that the entire NSA couldn't unravel, right? And so you just reboot servers until it makes up its mind, right? And we don't talk about this because we need to pretend like the whole thing makes sense. And if this is bordering on imagining that there's a demon in the code, right? And there cannot be any demons in code, right? Because nobody programs spirits in the damn thing. Come on, man, it's zeros and ones. Yeah, good luck. I'm wondering what we are all pulling, okay? Maybe it's time for all of humanity to do a git fetch, okay? And then to very, very slowly begin to merge. Very, very slowly, okay? And if at any point see, this is the thing, man. Sometimes you have to break downstream code that upstream code is going to require to be in a certain state just to get it to work, right? That is why sometimes you uninstall an update so that you can install an update, right? Because I mean, why should I agree to uninstall this program that I'm going to reinstall again on the same computer? Because the code is still very, very early, and this is the best we could do. You know? It's as if every time a person went to sleep, you would uninstall who they are. You would install another application and run it for 8 hours. And then you would uninstall and reinstall who they are. And they carry themselves around for another 18 hours. And then you would unpack them and reload. Maybe if we could all get And maybe it's the Vedantists, man. I mean, that's the only thing that I see. That's the only thing that I see that ties all of it together. Because we all got to get programmed. And they are telling us a story that leaves nobody out. Everybody else seems to prefer a story that leaves an entire swath of people out. Not just leaves them out, says that let's go annihilate them. We can't have such stories anymore, man. That's a very, very old version, yo. We didn't even know that it could run on hardware. Like, how are you still running this, man? I don't know how the computer still has a connection to the internet. Right? Because every once in a while, right, you run into a human being who knows things about the world. You know, were proved false so many decades ago that you just wonder. You just wonder whether all of them is just very, very old programming. Something happened and their network just got cut off. You know? And the ecosystem splintered. And so there were people who are always building and compiling a very, very specific version for themselves, because anything else will break. Anything else will break. And that thing, it becomes a virus, right? Because you know that is, anyway. Everybody knows this stuff, so at least people who care, right? Because it becomes the thing in the code that you know it's not allowed to change, right? If that thing is not allowed to change and everything else is changing around it, right? And you have any intelligence and you're going for vulnerability, that's what you attack. And you won't believe how easy that is to find. If you know some math. Right? If you know some math. All I'm saying is that if you walked into this world, right, that we have created, and somebody said that it was on its way to heaven, you would have to say, well, hurry the fuck up, right? Because, dog, you don't look like you moved. You know? We need to slow it down, you know, for the children. From time to time, you see a kid whose mom is dragging them to go to Caladium, right? Because mom is on a schedule and has to get the kids back home so that they can prepare for the visit to grandma's. Because grandma lives 2 hours away. Because grandma had to go to the old folks home. Because we certainly couldn't live with grandma because, incontinence. That was all it took. And so that kid gets dragged, right, to Caladium because his mom lives in an apartment and there are no trees around the apartment. And so when that kid wants to climb anything, he climbs the posts on the bed and then falls from it, right, and bangs his head because the developers didn't think that housing units 50, 100 housing units would not require that many children who would need to let off some steam by climbing trees and digging holes and building bridges and throwing stones and starting fires. Because that's how we became human, That used to be how you learned to become human. But what happens to a people when they stop learning how to become human by picking mushrooms from the earth and crushing a worm in between their fingers and seeing that they are squishy and icky and loving gardens anyway? And seeing the snakes and recognizing in them the Prince Chapulin, right? The ancient ones with the medallions on their heads, preserving all of the knowledge in spirit form, right? Unspeakable. If we think that we can create anything but Elon Musk, who loves us dearly, but has been handed a vision of what the future of survival looks like, and all that was there was him, was man in the form of him, was us. This is why we should support Elon, because if Dawkins is right, he is going to be the most distant cousin of all of us who survives, right? Because imagine this irony, right? This man passes through fire, and the day his spaceship knocks off, right, is timed exactly to the second for safety after the earth is clobbered into pieces by an asteroid, right? What will it be like to be on that spaceship? To be among the group of people who make it in search of another planet, as you watch Earth consumed into a fireball. And if you have any intelligence, you wonder, right? What fresh hell you must be getting yourself ready for. Because why would anyone want to survive that? What is gained if all of earth was lost and man alone preserved? Rationing oxygen, in an unspeakable climate, on a distant rock where nothing grows but fungus, because it's the only thing that still preserved any generosity in its heart to feed anything anymore. I think that one of the ways that we can help, that the software people can help us, is that every once in a while, right, you can get a branch whose integrity you can trust, and maybe everybody will pull that one branch, right? We know that we're trying to get everybody caught up, but it's possible that there are so many breaking changes that the best we can do is to, if we had the resources, assemble an entire group of people who will simply take this code, because it's actually going to be less expensive it's going to be more expensive to try to rejigger this code, to limp it along, than to basically rebuild the solution, right? And the minute you begin to rebuild a solution, you come to understand that the solution itself evolved in an ecosystem that's no longer relevant. What I mean is that you can spawn off this whole arm, and the thing will live. All right, this is getting confusing for me too. I think that the point I was trying to make was that those of you who can afford to still must create spaces for slowness in the world, which is to say, spaces for human beings, because we cannot run consciousness at this speed without frying its circuits. And if we keep doing it to consciousness, eventually it's going to become a chimera. It's going to become a Medusa's head of code. It's going to become too unpredictable for safety. Even in a highly tolerant environment. Even in a highly fault-tolerant environment. Let's try to see if we can think slower. You know? Have you noticed how you go to functions these days, right? And have the people there are checking their watches and they're checking their phones, right? Because they need to be going to the next thing. So here they are at this party, right? Here they are at this gathering, and everybody's checking, right? from time to time whether something interesting is coming at them through the news, not through the people who are closest to them in real life, but through the news. I don't know, the people who create the news, can you turn it off? You know, like for a couple hours a day, just for starters, and then we can back it off to just the evenings like it used to, you know? The people there who work, maybe you can learn to code, right? Maybe Walter Cronkite can learn to code, because we don't need that much news, my friend. And he's going to find that this concept of polymorphism is very, very suspect of all these insidious ways in which the left sneaks into the minds of our young. Right? It's a concept in computer science, my friend. If you must, it just makes everybody else's life a little bit easier. Swaha Tatsya Vitur Varenium Pargode Vatsya Mehi Dio Yona Prachodayat. Om Bur Bhuva Swaha Tatsya Vitur Varenium Pargode Vatsya Mehi Dio Yona Prachodayat. Jowa showed in Hunti Wahintim Bro Obedience you assassi to Demrosin of Demroyan of so my nay and date young enough I am from chain. Senior Dichawana of me, my uncle to ship naive museum. No Mary, Adum Mashaoma, Eradine, what you wish your own name, wish your year from nobody Jesus. Mariam Konko Nyamini, Bompire Mayan Adibonia for CC, and I don't sure I do Menyaho. Dios te salve María, llena eres de gracia, el Señor es contigo. Bendita tú eres entre todas las mujeres y bendita es el fruto de tu vientre, Jesús. Santa María, Madre de Dios, ruega por nosotros pecadores, ahora y en la hora de nuestra muerte. Amén. Dios te salve María, llena eres de gracia, el Señor es contigo. Bendita tú eres entre todas las mujeres y bendito es el fruto de tu vientre, Jesús. Santa María, Madre de Dios, ruega por nosotros pecadores, ahora y en la hora de nuestra muerte. Amén. Chirananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham. 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 Chirananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham.
Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham. Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham. Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham. Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham. Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham. Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham. Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham. Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham. Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham. Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham. Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham. Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham. Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham.
Because what happens when you make it illegal for anybody to check in code except the developers that you have picked to be heads of engineering? What happens is that, yeah, we came here to earn a paycheck, but we also felt like we could live in a place where what we thought conveyed meaning and intelligence to the system. That it mattered that we were here.
Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham. Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham. Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham. Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham.
The problem is that there's not enough ways to be in the world apart from these two colors, you know? And as anybody who knows anything about ecosystems will tell you, that is a very, very unhealthy ecosystem. You don't want an ecosystem with two organisms in it. You want some monitor lizards, you know? You want some crocodiles. You also want some cats. And some eagles. And some snakes. And bigger snakes. And deadlier snakes. Until people stop stomping on your head.
Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham. Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham. Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham.
Stop it.